and welcome to the channel. Don't forget to subscribe. Subscription is and always will be absolutely free. And in this video we're going to be talking about the jobs that you should be looking at doing in March, particularly in your exotic effect garden. So I've got a few things here to run through with you. First thing, if you've got an exotic garden, quite often during the spring, if you have a little look around ours, there is not a lot happening. So
pretty covered up, isn't it?
It is covered up, and also a lot of the exotic plants are either deciduous or just herbaceous and diabetic, so there's not a lot to see. So in order to give you more effect, more colour, more interest, then we do plant more and more evergreen plants. One of the evergreen plants we've got today, which we picked up as an absolute bargain, is a little camellia here.
It's very nice, isn't it?
Yeah, and with any plant that's a little bit expensive, a little bit special, then the best bet is to try and buy it when it's in flower, because then you're guaranteed that that plant is the right colour. I say like camellia, you can plant now. It's, planting it might absolutely fine. It's in tight bud. Might be some risk of flowers opening when there's a late frost happening, but then plant that in a sheltered position and you should be absolutely fine. But then what you're going to do, you're going to grow them or not grow them, so you can't be too precious about such things. We've got camellias in flower now in the garden, and we have had frost, but they still look absolutely stunning. Anyway,
pleased with that.
That is that. Second job. This time of year, the nurseries are releasing all their bare root stock. And so it's a fantastic opportunity to get a big range of plants and get them in early. Plants like this.
Okay, what's this?
This is a protea. Now, plants like this, when they're young like this, they can be susceptible to cold temperatures. So you need to give them the opportunity to grow through a whole season. So you buy them early, get them planted up early, then they've got the whole of the spring, summer and autumn to establish. Makes them much more cold hardy come the winter. And that's the same for things like your inset bananas, like some of your palm species, like your Phoenix canariensis. While they're small, they're so much more susceptible. As they mature and establish, they become cold hardier and more hardier as they grow. Not in every case, but in quite a lot of cases. So be very careful of that. Buy these things early. We've picked up quite a lot of your summer flowering bulbs, because your summer flowering bulbs are available at this time of year, and you buy them again as early as you can, because once these have been lifted and put in the bag, that's going to be sat on the shelf until they sell. So it's March now. These could be hanging up for another 8 weeks, and all during that period they're drying out. So, and that's an important thing. Get your pre-packed bare root summer flowering bulbs and tubes and roots. Get them in as soon as they're available. Some of them you might want to put in the greenhouse for a bit of extra protection. Some, like these tree lilies, you go straight in the ground because they're tough as old boots. Next job. In there. If you are growing potatoes, we are going to be growing potatoes this year. These are going to be going in containers, but you need to chit them. And chitting is when you get the plant to start putting out its new shoots. You see those, all right?
Yeah, I can. Hey.
Yeah, these are tropical plants. These are from South America, if you know your history. And they have a much better, warmer, longer growing period than we have in this country. So to get the best crop out of these, you need to get it going early so you can make the most of our growing conditions. So chitting potatoes, getting these ready, that's an important one.
What are these?
Tomatoes.
Ooh.
It is the same issue as you've got with potatoes. Again, South American. Have a much longer, warmer, brighter growing season than we do have here. So you've got to start them early so that they establish to a point, and when they go outside, they can make the most.
Can you just explain to people why you touched them then?
Yeah.
So you did that, and there's a reason for it.
There is a reason for this.
Rather than you're just weird.
If you're growing seeds, you normally grow them indoors, aren't you?
Yeah.
Actually grow them indoors. And if they're behind glass, the glass takes out some of the ultraviolet light. And because of the low levels of ultraviolet light, you get something called etiolation. There's a word for you. Etiolation is the stretching of the stem between the leaves, each set of leaves. And if I just let them grow, they'll stretch and stretch and stretch and look awful, and you're probably really familiar with that. Now, one of the tricks that you can do to reduce that issue of etiolation or stretching is you just go over it. You do that.
They respond. They're very
times a
tactile,
day.
aren't they?
It
Respond
toughens
to
them
it.
up. Thickens up the stem growth.
Yeah.
It thickens up the leaf.
It's a bit like staking a tree, isn't it? You're sort of thickening it up. I don't know, just that pressure on it is kind of...
Well, you see, you've seen pictures of those naturally bonsai trees
Yeah.
on cliff faces in strong winds. Well, it is those harsh conditions. It's
Yeah.
a constant blowing on it. It
Yeah.
will
It's suddenly
change
going,
the
right,
growth
I just
habit.
need to sort of, just send some chemical reaction and needs to start sturdying up a bit. Yeah.
So that's an important little trick of the trade for especially growing plants under glass, because it's always an issue.
Yeah.
And but the importance of sowing early to make the most of the season, because plants, they go through, most of them, through 3 stages. That is juvenile, mature and senile, and plants tend to produce their fruit during the mature stage. So you want it to grow into its mature stage just as the growing season starts. So it's got the best start you can, get your crop earlier, because with tomatoes,
Yeah.
they don't ripen until the fruit's actually
No.
got to its overall size.
No.
Which just brings me to a small point. If you're growing big beefsteak tomatoes in this country, you're going to need a greenhouse, possibly extra heat, extra light. Otherwise, it could be September, October before you get anything that's going to ripen.
Does that mean
if
that
indeed
cherry
it does.
tomatoes would crop earlier than bigger tomatoes?
That is absolutely right. And that is my top tip. If you want to grow tomatoes, you can only grow them outside because you don't have a greenhouse.
Yeah.
Cherry tomatoes. They will fruit earlier, and then you actually get a crop out of it.
Brilliant.
All right, so what's another job that you need to be thinking of for March? Now, if you end up having a few warm, sunny days together, like we're having at the moment, it's easy to become complacent regarding overnight frosts. Now, from March to about April and even May, the threat of a late night frost is always present. So even though you may be keen to take away all of your winter protection, and you can do if overnight temperatures are hovering around about 6, 7, 8 degrees centigrade, but always keep your eye on the weather. Make sure you're not caught out by a late frost that will ruin all your overwintering work you've put in over the past few months. That's a really important one, because it can seriously cost you for this coming season. Right, now you might be thinking about cutting your lawn for the first time this year, and why not? In March it's usually quite dry, it's usually quite mild. Just a couple of things you need to be thinking about. If you've had a lot of rain and your soil and lawn is quite waterlogged, do not put a heavy mower on that. The heavy mower is just going to sink, especially if you've got a big roller, it's just going to sink that grass into the mud, and you just have a big, horrible, compressed, compact, damp, slidey, slimy soil marks that the grass is going to struggle to go through. So be very careful, just make sure conditions are okay. Secondly, leave the height of your cut a little bit longer than your regular cut through the growing season. So if you're on like a 2, then move that to a 3. If you're on a 3, move that to a 4. So you don't cut it as low as you want to. And also, because it's been so wet and cold and the grass has been growing too much, you might find you've got an increase of weeds, but it's not yet the time to put down a lawn weed killer. You need to wait till April for that. But you might have a lot of moss in there. You could put down an application of moss killer, or just get your rake and start scarifying your lawn. That's probably about it for lawns. Now, what else do we need to think about? Well, if you can't think of any other March gardening jobs to do, well, guess what? There is always weeding, and we love weeding, don't we? Don't we like getting in the mud, getting your hands filthy, cutting yourself on bits of glass you find left in the soil? I've managed to find glass in the soil. Because weeding at this time of year reaps massive rewards, because if you can keep control on your weeds now, before they start flowering and producing seeds that will spread literally everywhere, you're going to find yourself a much bigger job later on in the season. So weed now, that is a timely job, and give yourself a break later on in the year. An absolutely brilliant job to do. I think lastly, just periodically have a walk around your garden, check your borders, make sure there's nothing that needs to be done. Let me show you what we need to do on ours. Okay, well the weeding's pretty good, although I want to extend this sort of range of panels along before all these plants start to grow, because then they'll be a pain to take off and re-put back on. So that's a timely job. Get another panel in there. Just keep an eye with these tree ferns while it's mild and we haven't got overnight frost, and make sure that these are still watered regularly and a light feeding, not like a summer feeding, but you know, maybe once a week, a half dose. Get some feed in that crown, because give it another 4 weeks and those new fronds will be coming straight out of there. Yeah, everything looks okay, but bear in mind, this is probably like your last month really where you can move shrubs around without disturbing the root system too much. If you've got any plants here that were heavily shaded last summer, then now's your time to move them out and move them around. And indeed, think about all those plants that you were thinking of buying last year that you'd forgotten about. You know, put your hand in your pocket, get those ordered, get those in the ground, so they've got a full season to grow, mature and establish before next winter comes, because established plants, bigger plants, will always fare better over winter than later, weaker, smaller planted ones. And lastly, and be honest with you, there's probably loads more jobs I can think of given the time, don't forget that with the milder, warmer weather and the damp springs that we tend to get, don't forget that the slugs and snails will be breeding, laying eggs, wandering around eating everything. So make sure your slug management is in place. We like to use slug pubs in our garden, and be honest with you, if you've got anything, any great ideas, any fantastic timely jobs that you should be doing in March and that I haven't mentioned, then please add those in the comments. We would love to hear from you. Anyway, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.